I want to welcome you to Dream Chasers Radio with me, your host, Yaya Diamond. What's up, peoples? How you doing? Okay, so I have an author on the show, but not only that, authors are special, and especially the ones that teach our children. But not only that, this gentleman right here is even super, super special because not only does he write for the children, but he also volunteers his time to help people around his neighborhood, I guess, or whatever. He's going to tell you
in the area,
exactly. Yeah, definitely. I'm going to have him tell you. And Mr. Stephen Stokes, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. So tell us about yourself.
I grew up on a small peanut farm in Henry County, Southeast Alabama. I went to Auburn University on a Naval ROTC scholarship. When I graduated, I chose the Marine Corps. I spent 4 years in the Marine Corps. I did Army Ranger School. I did a tour in Vietnam as a platoon and company commander.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
I did funerals in Arlington. I was like a funeral director. I would meet families at the airport, take them to Arlington, help with the service, and then make sure everything went smoothly for them. So then after my obligation was up, I resigned and went back to medical school. And when I finished, I came to my hometown in Southeast Alabama, and I've been here as a cancer specialist for about 35 years now. And now I'm semi-retired, and I work part-time down in Florida, Panama City.
Oh,
and
nice.
So, the reason I got going with this book, it was one of the first ones I'd written. It's kind of a hobby. My granddaughter, who is now 8, when she was born with hip dysplasia, which means I'm not trying not to talk doctor talk. The femur, which is the main bone in your thigh that fits into your pelvis, it's called a ball and socket. Well, socket in the pelvis is not quite fitted correctly, so the leg can jump out of joint. And so when children are small, they don't crawl early or don't walk on time because it's painful. And so sometimes they fix it with a brace, or sometimes do surgery, or sometimes with physical therapy, they will finally get better. And so fortunately for us, she got better. And so she had physical therapy. And so she's essentially normal now. She'll never be a great college athlete, but she does fine. She can run and play like everybody else. So when she was little, obviously the parents and us, we were all concerned about it. So I wanted to go try to find a book about children being born with disabilities. And I really couldn't find one. And so I decided to write one. And so I wrote the book. It's Blinky, the One-Eyed Squirrel. And basically, the story is Blinky was born with one eye, and all the other little squirrels made fun of Blinky. They ridiculed him because he only had one eye. But then he found out, his mother told him, when you're born without something, that God will always give you another talent to make you whole. You just have to find your talent. And so all the squirrels were terrified by this hawk that constantly hunted them. But Blinky discovered that at night, his eye was special. He could see at night. So he could go out at night and gather the acorns when Mr. Hawk was asleep. So soon everybody wanted to be his friend because he could get the acorns at night. And so he then became their hero. And so finally, Mr. Hawk had to fly away and left them all alone. And that's basically the gist of the story, is to give parents hope that when their children are disabled, that they just have to find a special talent that they have and promote that talent so that they can truly be special.
Definitely. Wow, that is so cool. And you're right. There's just so many books out there that could be written that people aren't doing. And I think that this is a big special one. I mean, especially since we want the children to know that, it isn't the disability, it's your ability that matters.
That's right. It's an opportunity. But I think, to be honest with you, as a physician, I think that's such a sensitive issue. Is when you have a child that has a special need, it's such a sensitive issue with you that you just sometimes hard to confront it, but you have to. You've got to help that child find what their special talent is and promote it so truly they can be special, because everybody has talents. You just have to help them develop them.
Yes, definitely. I agree. So you wrote the book, you put it out, and what did you expect after that? I mean, did you expect anything other than, okay, I put the book out, whatever?
No, I just thought it'd be fun. And I dedicated it.
Well, now
that one, and then I got a sequel that came out when Hurricane Michael came through in Florida 2 years ago. It just devastated this area. So a lot of the children were terrified. They lost their homes and everything. So I wrote another one where Blinky and his team have to save the Squirrel clan from starvation.
That is too cute. That is too cute. And now Ian, because I'm in Sarasota and we went through the extreme winds in Ian and it was 8 hours of just bashing. I thought I was going to die.
Oh, yeah.
Are you going to write another
in
one?
Florida? You live in Florida?
I do. I live in Sarasota.
Oh my God! People, if they've never experienced a hurricane, they don't know what it's like. When I try to
No.
explain it to friends of mine, they think it's like a snowstorm. I said, no, it destroys everything in its path. And Michael was over 2 years ago in this part of Florida, and it's still devastated. It wiped out the pecan industry. It destroyed all the trees up in Southwest Georgia. And they're just now starting to recover a little bit, but it was a terrible storm. But yeah, unless you've lived through it, you don't understand what it's like.
Yeah, we lived through it. I don't want to do that again.
No. And so that was a story. It was two children's books, and but I just enjoy writing. To me, it's kind of a hobby. And I work with the homeless. I wrote a book called Redemption: A Story of Two Men. It was about a homeless person who got ran over by a train. Took him in and he turned his life around. And I compared him to a doctor I knew that was convicted of sexual assault that spent 7 years in prison. And I visited him once a month. He got out, he never turned his life around. And so it was amazing looking at two different men. One was at the very bottom, an alcoholic, got run over by a train, but turned his life around. And the other one was a doctor and never admitted that he was assaulting women in the emergency room. He'd give them a drug, and while they were asleep, he would molest them. So it's just, people are odd.
That's terrible. It's terrible. And it hasn't stopped happening. So you wrote a book about that as well. Wow. Okay, so any new books in the making anywhere?
I just wrote one. I can show you. Give me take a second. I'll show you the screen. Give me
definitely.
Hey guys, it's Yaya Diamond of Dream Chasers Radio, and I want to thank you so much for subscribing to Yaya Diamond's Dream Chasers Radio right here on. What do you mean you haven't subscribed? Well, you need to go over there and subscribe to Yaya Diamond's Dream Chasers Radio. That's youtube.com/Dream Chasers Radio. Right there. Right there. Subscribe.
Let me tell you the background on this. My son is a personal injury attorney in Montgomery. And last year he said, I want you to go with me to the Museum of Social Justice. It's in downtown Montgomery, and it's a fabulous museum. It talks about the slavery in the South. I don't know if you knew this, but Montgomery was the #1 slave market for the entire South. They would come there and they would be sold as slaves and distributed.
Yeah.
And in that museum, they've got a listing. It's like a hall of bells that are hanging. They're about 5 feet long and about this wide. And on the bells, they have the name of every victim that was lynched by the Ku Klux Klan by state and county. And it's lighted. So I went to where I was from and saw the name of Wes Johnson, a young man who was lynched by the Klan in 1937. I never heard of it. So I came back and started researching what happened to him. And he was an innocent young boy who was accused of raping a white woman. And so I wrote this book called Alone Against the Klan. It just came out. And his employer tried to protect him and actually took him into his house with his family and was besieged for 36 hours by the Klan, who wanted him. He wouldn't give him up. And so finally the sheriff came, and so he turned him over to the sheriff with the promise he'd get a trial. And then that night, the Klan broke him out of jail and lynched him. And so the fellow then went and got the young boy and buried him at the church where he'd given the land for. And so I wrote the story about how he tried to defend him for 36 hours. And then he was in an unmarked grave until about 2 years ago when somebody donated the money, put a gravestone to mark the story. And Oprah Winfrey came down to do the story. And the fellow who had taken the notes, who had talked to 2 of the Klan members before they died, and he wouldn't talk to Oprah. And so, but I told him that if he'd let me have the story, I wouldn't use the names because their descendants still live in the county. And I didn't want to get into it with the descendants.
Right.
Because the woman, she wasn't raped. They were having an affair and her husband caught them. And so that was the excuse. And so he was an innocent young man. And so I thought that would be a good story. It's called Alone Against the Klan. It just came out last week. And so I still write.
Wow.
It's just a hobby, but I thought it was a story that needed to be told.
You're definitely right. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that don't understand. Like I traced my ancestry back, and we were taken from Ireland as Black slaves. We were sold by Lord Robert Dundas, who was the grandfather of one of my, because they raped my great grandmother or whoever, and then he sold us to a landowner in America or whatever, and we were shipped to Montgomery, Alabama, and then we were sent to New Mexico.
I don't realize that, but they brought them to Montgomery, and then they were sold and dispersed out the Southeast. But that is a fabulous museum. If you ever get a chance to come to Montgomery,
I'm gonna have to. We were sold. I know we were sold to New Mexico, and from New Mexico, we were sent up to the north, to Chicago, and that's where we became free.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And I laugh, I tell that story if we're just digressing. I always thought my great grandmother was part Indian because she was very swarthy complected. When I had my genetics done last year, it turns out I'm 8% African. So
hey!
she wasn't part Indian, as a matter of fact. And,
wow. You just never know.
Genetics, you don't really know. And the story was she came out of Atlanta after the Civil War. She told everyone her husband had been killed and came here and settled and married someone and started her family. But I'm sure she may have in fact have been a slave and had been turned loose and came and started a new life because nobody knew the disruption of the Civil War. She said she was a widow and she married a fellow and started a family. And that was the story. But it turned out I'm 8% African.
A lot of Black women and men were light enough to pass for white.
That's right. And I think she told people, I think, that she was part Cherokee. And it turned out she wasn't Cherokee.
Yeah. And it was so funny because I know of a family that was white passing, and they bought their family.
Oh my God.
They bought the dark people of their family. They bought them and they owned the rights to them. They never sold them because that was their family. So to protect their family, they bought them.
Yeah, those are fabulous stories that people don't think about.
Yeah, it's crazy. Oh my gosh. But thank you so much for writing that book, because I mean, a lot of people don't know about this. They don't know, that Emmett Till was one of the ones that just came out, and the Emmett Till law, where you cannot, you can be prosecuted now for lynching. I don't even know. Most people didn't know that lynching was not a crime until like the beginning of this year.
Another thing I talked about in the story, the fellow that tried to protect this young fella, he was up and coming. He'd been elected county commissioner. He was making a lot of money. And I put in the story is that sometimes you have a choice between doing what's right and doing what's easy, and doing what's right comes with a price. And so because he stood against the Klan, he was not elected to any other public office the rest of his life. He basically was a marked man. It ended his career. And so, but he did what was right, and that's important.
Yeah. You know what? I have to send a big thank you out to him and his family for sacrificing for what is right. Because, I mean, I just found some of my cousins, and my cousin Bruce, he's white as day. It's like, and it's like, I'm going to go see him for the first time on Sunday. And it's like, that's my cousin, like my third cousin. Like, that's like only 3 generations. That's only third cousin is really close.
I know.
And then look at me, and he white. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's my cousin. And there's people looking at me like, but wait, that's your third cousin. I'm like, yes. So we're real pretty close here. It's not far away. If people ask me where you get your blonde hair from, I'm like, I don't know, but it's there. Do you dye your hair? No. So people, so we have to understand that we're mixed. Like, you thought you were Indian, you're not. I thought I was Indian. I
can have a casino. I'd open my own casino.
Hey, you probably could. You probably could. You said, I found out I was Cherokee. I thought I was Cherokee like you, but I'm not. I'm Chihuahua Mexican from Mexico, because we were sent from the Alabama to New Mexico.
Well, so I'm a trustee for University of South Alabama also. And have you heard of the Poach Creek Indians in Alabama?
Yes.
Well, do you know their story?
I don't.
Well,
Are you
let me
going to write
tell
a
you,
book about their
because
story?
we have a historian in Alabama, and I asked, I said, where did the Poach Creek Indians come from? There were never any Poach Creek Indians in Alabama. And the story is that when Geronimo was captured, he was brought to the federal prison in McIntosh, which is just above Mobile.
Mm-hmm.
He was in prison there. And so some of his Indians came with him, and they settled in surrounding areas, and they intermingled and married with poor whites and with blacks who would have associate with them. And there were several families there.
Mm.
And in the 1930s, Alabama did a census. And on that census, you could either declare yourself as white, as mulatto, mixed blood, and they put themselves down as Indian. And so then in the 1960s, they hired a lawyer, and he went in and got the deeds of those families that had claimed being Indian and declared that these were an Indian tribe. And so the deeds of their land became the Poach Creek Reservation. And so then they built the casino in just above Mobile in Atmore, Alabama. And so they generate about $200 million a year for 1,000 people. They're very fabulously wealthy. When I was down in the Mobile area, they were some of the poorest people, we'd see them at the university hospital, and now they're some of the richest. Sometimes life turns on a dime, you don't even think about it, but that's where the Poach Creek Indians came from. Wow. They were a mixture of the Comanche. What was Geronimo? Was he Apache or anyway, it was a mix of Geronimo's followers and poor African Americans and whites that formed together to form a family, and that's how they became the Poach Creek Indians.
That is just amazing. I love it. And that's how Blinky and the disadvantages that we can think that we have aren't really disadvantages at all. And that goes right back to your book, Blinky, the One-Eyed Squirrel, where there is no disadvantage because obviously no one else could look and see at nighttime.
At night, that's right. And like I said, I'm kind of a religious person, but I always believe that God gives you opportunities. And if you have, life is hard. Life is not fair. I'm a cancer specialist, and you sometimes ask, why does this person get it and other people don't? Life's not fair, but whenever you have a challenge, you just have to accept it and do the best you can with it and live your life and be thankful every day for what you have.
Definitely. Wow. I want to thank you, Mr. Stokes, for being on the show. Where can people find your book so that they too can understand that it's not
they can just go to Amazon and type in books by Stephen H. Stokes, books by Stephen H. Stokes, and it'll pop up. And it's got the Blinky series. It's got Redemption, a story of the two men. And then Alone Against the Klan will be One Man's Fight for Justice, and it'll be on there in about 2 weeks.
Awesome. I can't wait for that one. It's not a disadvantage. You don't have a disadvantage. You have an advantage. And you do have, something special that no one else has.
That's right.
No matter what.
Everybody is. And you got to develop it. And
that's right. And I think everybody in their own mind and in their own way is disadvantaged to a point. You probably just can't see it. It's not a physical thing. Sometimes it's mental.
We all have trauma. Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure talking with you. And if you ever come this way, I'd love to have you stay, and I'll give you the tour.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm looking forward to that. All right. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in. Don't forget to Dare to Be Different. And don't forget that we're going to have all that information about the Amazon link that you can go to find not only Blinky, but all of his other books. And we're still waiting for that next book that's going to be coming out in a couple of weeks. I want to thank you again so much for tuning in. And until next time, guys, bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for stopping by. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. Hit that notification bell so you'll be notified the next time that I upload. And don't forget to Dare to Be Different. Until next time, guys.
I dare to be different. I dare to be different. I dare to be different.